Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter. I am your host, Kelli Melissa Reinhart, and I am very excited for my guests today. I actually have two of them, so this will be a first time on the Make Mental Health Matter show. But the exciting part about that is that they have a path that they have been on, as most of us do, through this thing that we call life. And oftentimes, that path that we go along doesn't always end up being exactly what we thought it would be. We also, as humans, have different experiences. We can literally be in the same exact experience and have a different outcome or a different reaction, or that experience for us just may be very different from somebody that literally could be sitting right next to us. And that's why I think it's really cool today that I do have two guests on that have similar experiences, but very different also. And I think the important part, as with all of these shows, is that we have the hard conversations that nobody else wants to have. And the reason why that's important is because we can really showcase that no matter what you're going through, whatever experience it is that you are having throughout this life, you really truly are not alone. And there's so much hope on the other side of whatever experience you or journey. I like to say journey experience. They're interchangeable, but you can definitely have that place of hope. You can find and start to do better, start to do things that impact other people's lives, and do better for yourself, because self-care is also a very important part of whatever journey or experience you have been through. So that's enough of my soapbox for today. I am going to introduce my guests. And so my first guest, Amy, she is a Columbine survivor. So if you don't know about Columbine in Colorado, we'll talk more about that, but it's Columbine High School in Colorado. And she is also the founder of Survivor's Path and host of the podcast Confronting Columbine. Amy has worked with survivors all over the country, has been featured on Dr. Phil, NBC, Glamour magazine, and Women's Health magazine. And my second guest, Michelle Wheeler, she is also a survivor of the Columbine High School Massacre and graduated from Columbine in 1999. She studied psychology at Metropolitan State College and early childhood education through the University of Phoenix. Michelle taught preschool for 21 years in a fully inclusive school, working with students who suffered trauma and or have a behavioral diagnosis. Michelle taught through COVID-19 and then left the classroom in May of 2021. In August 2021, Michelle accepted a job working as an instructional coach for a public school district in Colorado. She continues to help support the behavior team and responds to the children in crisis within the school. So let me bring both of them up. Amy and Michelle, thank you so much
Hi.
for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, I am really excited. I know I was like Metro, and then I'm like, there is a full name of the school. um I went there when it was Metro, and then they transitioned in the university. So
Yep.
well, I'm really excited because we actually all had met at an event, and then most recently we reconnected at another event. And so I would love, and we're going to start with Amy. I know I did a brief intro, but can you tell us a little bit more about your story and really leading into creating Survivor's Path?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a mother of four. I've got a lot of kiddos, and I've been a wife for 24 years, and I talk a lot about that in my journey and in my path. My husband has been a huge advocate towards my mental health healing. So he has been my rock from day one. And he met me right after the Columbine shooting. So I just want to give a shout out to my hubby, because he's a big resource for me, and just my love of my life. I found myself 18 years old, about to graduate high school, and it was right after our senior prom, and we were just getting ready to graduate, and life was good, and I got a basketball scholarship. I thought I knew where my path was headed, and then I found myself under a table, and was scared for my life, did not know how to get out of the school, thought about it for a few quick seconds. I don't know how long I was under that table, but ended up running out of the school and for my life, and dodging bullets, and got myself into a home. There's a group of us that pushed our way into a home where we heard the bombs, and we heard shooting and screams and all the things, but ended up getting home. I do not remember how I got home that day, but my mom said it looked like a clown car. When we pulled up, there was a group of us that just piled into a car, I guess, and ended up getting home. After the shooting, I found out that I lost my basketball coach, Dave Sanders, and he was the one that got me my basketball scholarship, and everything was just up in the air, and I found myself really in a place of anger. That was like the first emotion that I had that really stuck out. And I got 6 counseling sessions after the shooting, and that was not enough. Obviously, 6 sessions was not going to cure me, but I ended up throwing a vase at the counselor and got kicked out of counseling, and anger just kept being at the forefront of my emotions after Columbine. So I started working on myself years later. My husband got me into therapy, and I did it on and off. It wasn't until I became a mother and my daughter started attending school is when I really hit my rock bottom, and I started having chronic panic attacks and panic disorder. I dealt with that for many years, and then I got involved with an organization called the Rebels Project, and I started fundraising. They were a group of Columbine survivors that help. They do help survivors around the country, and I started fundraising for them, and that really helped with my healing path. After my mom passed away in 2021, I decided to step back from the Rebels Project and kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And I wasn't done sharing my story. So I decided, and I kept having opportunities to share my story. And I decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to start a speakers bureau and a speakers company where we go and publicly speak on everything, and there's no holds bar on what we speak about. We will talk about suicide. We will talk about anything that we want to talk about. We will go to politics. We will go anywhere. So so I brought Michelle on board, and 2 other of our colleagues, and we decided to make a run at this, and we're a very new company. But we're starting to gain momentum, and then we want to donate our proceeds to the 720 Foundation, is where the proceeds of our public speaking will go towards mass trauma survivors and their mental health. So we really, Michelle and I, and all of our colleagues, we just really are in a place that we are ready to share our stories. We've gotten the help. Not to say that we're cured. You're never cured from this. But we are in a spot where we can talk about this and be okay to help others. So.
Amazing. And thank you so much for sharing. I mean, the details, of course, like that's probably a very brief overview of what you were experiencing that day. But I also love how it's you speaking about your story has really led into healing, which is a lot like my story. The more and more I talk about it, the more it's healing for me. So that it just feels very much like we're empowered by our stories. Although you have this traumatic experience, it can still lead into empowerment. So that's just incredible. And I know, Michelle, share a little bit more about your story and your journey.
Yeah, so I am a Columbine High School graduate, 99, survived the shooting. I was in the choir room when it started, and half of us went into an auditorium, which is right behind the choir room, still upstairs. And then the teacher who went in there with us told us to run in groups. And I was one of the first groups to run. And when I stepped out into the hallway, I could see white lights by the door. And then to my left, I came face to face with a gunman. I had about 96 bullets pass my body as I ran down the hall for my life. I drug a poor innocent freshman with me and got out of the building. A teacher told us to run to the park. And that's pretty much the last of my memory of that day. Ended up at my sister's house somehow. I don't know how I got there. And that's, like Amy said, we had 6 therapy sessions, which was by means not even enough. And I think we had a certain time limit that we had to use them in. And so I didn't have very good luck with that, and went into college thinking I was fine, everything's fine. And then met my husband, who coincidentally was a senior when I was a freshman at Columbine, but told me I was too young and I'd be cute when I grew up. So we met up when I was in college, and he basically saved my life and met me at my rock bottom. And from then on, I started getting therapy and doing EMDR and just understanding what I went through and start processing what I went through. Now I'm a mother of one. She just graduated from Columbine High School. We're really excited. She'll be going to Metro to study mathematics. So we're really excited about that. We're just getting ready to have her move out and start her new life.
Amazing. And thank you for sharing also.
Yeah.
And it is not interesting, but I just think the brain is fascinating, and how we can be in one space and then all of a sudden we're in another space. And really, the brain with trauma, it locks it in there, and it's something that maybe in the future you want to experience, or maybe you don't, right? Like, our brains are really there to protect us. But both of you said that you didn't know how you ended up home, and there's all these blank spots, which it's when I look back on several moments in time around when even my sister passed and other things that have happened in my life that are traumatic experiences, there's pockets of things that I remember. And I think that is interesting when we talk about that, because you can go through this experience, move forward into the future, and you're like, I'm good, I'm fine. And then things start to surface again. And so I think that's why, I love Survivor's Path and what you're creating. It's really a place for survivors of whatever experience, whether it is a shooting, a mass shooting, or other experiences, that they can really just share their story. And there's not, as a speaker myself, there is not a lot of groups that just focus on that. So that's why when I met you both, I was like, oh, we need to connect. And then we reconnected. So
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, and Michelle, the question that pops up into my head, because, well, both of you can answer, but knowing that your daughter is now graduating and going to Columbine, like, what was that as you went into Columbine? Like, what was your thought process there? Like, did it bring up emotions, or?
Yeah, I did a lot of my early therapy in Columbine High School, doing EMDR, walking my path out. So by doing that, it made me realize that the building didn't hurt me, that the 2 perpetrators hurt me. And I knew, living in the community, I wanted my daughter to go to the same schools that my husband and I went to. As a mom and as a survivor, security and safety are my top priority. And I was in the same elementary school teaching when my daughter was there. Middle school COVID hit, so that doesn't really count. They were sent home. But going into Columbine and having her do her high school career there, there's so much security. There's so much, it's a family. It's a different feel here in the Columbine community. The principal, Scott Christie, is a phenomenal human being who is mentored by Frank DeAngelis, who was our principal during the shooting. And any questions, any threats, anything that would come up, I could call him, I could text him, I could email him, and he'd be very blunt and frank with me. And he respected, the days that I want to keep her out of school because I just didn't feel safe enough. He would point out all of the security cameras they have, uniformed police officers all the time at the high school. It just was a very safe environment for her to go to, and a very loving and respectful and kind place for her to learn and finish out her high school career. So I wouldn't have chosen any other school. I think just knowing that school inside and out and doing the work that I have done with the school since the shooting, it was a no-brainer for my husband and I to send her there.
Wow. And I'm curious, so, and Amy, maybe you can answer this, but just for those people, I mean, I feel like the nation knows about Columbine, but for people that don't know, can you just share, I mean, not naming, of course, the shooters, but how many people died during the shooting, and just so that people know a little bit more that are watching this about Columbine.
So Columbine happened on a Tuesday, April 20th, 1999. Two perpetrators, we will not mention their names. We practice no notoriety. They came in shooting they had propane tanks in the cafeteria where I was at. And it was supposed to be a bombing. But essentially it was supposed to be a bombing, but the propane tanks weren't filled up enough, thank God. And that's why we're here today. And they came in shooting at all of us, and there were bombs all over the school. One of our coaches, Dave Sanders, passed away, and we had 13 angels, so that we lost that day, and like a ton of people injured. I mean, just so many injured.
25.
25 physically injured, and then our wounds are invisible. But yeah, we there were thousands of us that were hurt and emotionally, and this was a big pivotal part in our history of our nation. And this was one of the first, if not the first, televised mass shootings, just around the clock. It was, it was a spectacle. And then when we went back to school at Chatfield High School after all of the funerals and stuff, we had media jumping out of bushes to talk to us. It was really an exhausting and hard time. And we were, Michelle and I were about to graduate, and, everyone, we didn't have, and Frank DeAngelis, our principal, always said that he worried about the class of 1999, that we were his children. And he truly worried about us and wants all of us to be okay, because we didn't get to go back to the school. And I kind of have mixed emotions about whether or not I wish I would have gone back or not. But I think maybe it might have been good for me if I would have gone, maybe if I was a junior instead of a senior, because we essentially were just put out into the world and we had this trauma. But we did have Frank DeAngelis as our mentor, and he really, when we saw him, he knew our names. He knew every kid's name in that high school. And if you saw him on the street today, he would know your name, your family's name. He's just, when Michelle talks about Columbine as a family, it really truly is an amazing community. So we did have that, but a lot of us scattered and went off to college, got married, started having kids, and I still know some survivors that have never spoken about it before, which breaks my soul.
Yeah. So there's a question that's formulating in my head, but we're going to take our quick first sponsored break. And then once we come back, I will ask that question. So we'll be right back after this quick sponsored break. I lost my middle sister, Kelli, to a completed suicide on February 20th, 2017.
My story, however, it isn't unique. I am a domestic violence survivor and a recovering addict. For 14 years, I was in active addiction, and because of Kelli and the work that she does and the opportunity to have my voice heard, I was able to stay clean and sober and have hit a year. I'm still here, and if it wasn't for Kelli answering my call the day that I thought I was going to take my life.
Curious, and I know that I've heard a lot in the BIPOC community, it is very hush hush. It's like one of those things that you don't talk about. Like, you literally feel like it's not a conversation you can have. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
First, shout out to Kelli, because I'm glad that she asked the question. I researched you before I went on your show, and I saw how real and authentic you were. And I just appreciate the question, because it is different, and we have to have tough, courageous conversations. So yes, I always say I'm a triple diversity threat. I'm a Black woman with multiple disabilities. Now, I'm not really a threat, but to other people, I may be, because people fear the unknown and what they're uncomfortable with.
Kelli's passionate commitment to mental health awareness is a beautiful thing. It's clear in her social media posts, it's clear in the resources that she puts together, in the activities that she provides, her collaboration with organizations, and the consistent way that she continues to deliver a message encouraging people to understand that they can share openly and to break the stigma around mental health. Kelli's topics cover children and adults, talk about things that we can do as a community, things that we can do individually, and her website is packed with information and resources and all kinds of contacts that you can use to reach out, whether you're dealing with something yourself or you're looking to help somebody else who is struggling. I encourage you to check it out.
And like that, we're back. If you happen to be just joining us, thank you so much for watching the Make Mental Health Matter show. My guests, Michelle and Amy, we are talking about their stories and really about the Columbine Massacre that happened at Columbine High School in Colorado, and also just leading into Survivor's Path, which is a speaker bureau of speakers who have been through, whether it's traumatic experiences or just experiences in general, which makes them a survivor, being able to share their stories in whatever capacity that looks like to really help in the healing journey. And so I had a question that was formulating in my head before we went to the break, and it was around, Amy, you said it, the invisible scars, right? Or the invisible, they said 25 were injured, but really I would say the whole entire school was traumatized. And that's the one thing that we don't often talk about. You both said 6 sessions was definitely not enough. And as high schoolers, I mean, the brain is not fully developed until you're 25 to 28. And so the rational part, like just having that experience, especially in a school, in a place that you're supposed to be safe, in a place that you have to go every single day, pretty much other than the weekends. And we are trusting, as both of you are parents, and myself, we're trusting that I'm taking my child to a place that is safe. And the more and more school shootings that we have, it's really hard, at least from my perspective as a parent, to know. And I love that Michelle said that Columbine now has a ton of safety measures put in place. So, what would you, well, so there's two questions, and either of you can answer, but when we talk about the invisible scars, what is it important for people to understand about that?
Michelle, you want to?
Yeah. So my rock bottom was year 3. And inside I felt numb. I was angry. I was jumpy. I didn't understand why, when I said what high school I went to, they'd look at me. I felt dead inside. And I was contemplating, unconsciously collecting pills to kill myself, and had a plan and was set to do it on a certain night. And something changed that night and made me realize that there are other feelings out there than pain and anger and numbness. And I finally felt something good and went with that feeling. And it took a lot of therapy. It took a lot of pain and suffering and processing to get to the point where I'm at now. And I'm nowhere by means over it. I never will be. But the internal pains, or the internal scars that we have, our triggers are real. Our day-to-day life could be ups and downs. It could be, if something happens in the news, it could destroy my hour, my day, my week, my month. It depends on what is happening. And so just really understanding, through my journey, I've understood my body and listened to my body and know when I'm starting to feel that anxiety and that tense, that it's a lifelong struggle, and I need to slow down and stop what I'm doing and really process what's going on around me.
Yeah, I think learning, through therapy and all the different therapies that I've done, just finding what works for me, my coping skills. And, like they say, like, have tools in your toolbox. I have those that I can use when I feel anxious. A lot of, when I work with a lot of mass trauma survivors, it's not funny, but we're all kind of quirky, and we have like some of the same little quirks. Like, we don't like balloons popping. We don't like the 4th of July. We have to sit looking out, we can't have our back to the windows at restaurants. We always know where our exits are. Those are just kind of quirky little things as a survivor that, if I go out to lunch with my friends, they're like, oh, Amy, sit here. They're always like, oh, Amy, has to be looking at everybody and know the count of people in the room. And that's just something that I'm okay with. And it's kind of just like my superpower. And just like my ADHD, I look at that as like my superpower, and it's something that, it's just my quirks, and you've got to kind of roll with the punches and laugh about it sometimes, and just say, okay, like, that balloon popped and I almost dropped to the ground, and that sucked. Like, but like, how am I going to get through this? Like, and calm myself down. And, I do a lot of tapping back and forth. And that was, with my EMDR therapy, and, and I talk a lot to, I have to vent, and luckily I have, a great group of girlfriends that I can surround myself with. Anniversaries are a really big time. Like, Michelle and I really, and our other colleagues too, like, we always check on each other on our anniversaries. And sometimes, like this year, Michelle invited me to the school and I couldn't do it this year. Next year, I hope I can go and do that with her. So, it's just, anniversaries are really big too, and we're 25 years out of our, shooting, and we still, anniversaries are a big thing for us.
I think, so I love that you both mentioned, I mean, and you were talking about like the quirks, right?
Mhm.
One, sarcasm is important, right? Like laughter and
Very.
knowing that you have like these certain things that you do now, which I think that's what it is important for people to hear that too, is it never goes away, right? It is something that it becomes this journey. And oftentimes I refer to it as a roller coaster, because you have your highs, you have your lows. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's not very fun, right? So, but it also, you have like PTSD, which you can also, I mean, there's other forms of PTSD also, but it's these moments that are traumatizing, that
Yeah.
it never, like, you can change it, but it always kind of brings you back a little bit to different places. But the best part of it is you understand, hey, it's fine. Like, I can't have my back to the window, and that's how it's going to be. That's okay. It keeps me alive. It keeps me safe. I know what I'm doing. And if other people don't understand, well, that's for them to worry about, not for me. Right. And so I think that that is important, even if, because some people, and the reason why my brain is going this way is because I've had so many people that are like, what's wrong with me? Why am I doing this? Why are these emotions coming up? People are telling me to get over it. People are telling me that I shouldn't be experiencing this anymore. And that's just not okay, because it doesn't just go away.
Oh yeah, my mom told me to get over it. I mean, before she passed away, I finally got an apology from her. And it was fine, whatever. I got an apology, but still she said it, and it was just, like, what do you mean get over it? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, seriously,
I think the generation of our parents are different. I'm a Gen X. Amy's, I think, a Gen X.
Yeah.
Our parents were, I think, the builders or the boomers, and they didn't process trauma. They just shoved it under the rug. My mother told me never to talk about it, and that if I talk about it, I'm letting the perpetrators win. And she has stuck to her word. And I may get an apology, but I don't expect it. It's an unfortunate thing because my family doesn't know who I truly am, and they don't know my true journey and who I am. They only know part of me. And I've grown to understand that that's their fault, not mine.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, to find your people and find your tribe, and it's really important to find, people that understand what you're going through and don't minimize. And validation is such a huge part of being a survivor of anything. I mean, it's just nice to be validated that, hey, you're not crazy. Like, it's okay that you feel this way. It's okay that you had a panic attack and you are shaking and you don't understand why physiologically this is happening to you. But PTSD, if you don't deal with it, has an ugly way of rearing its ugly head out. And if
it deals with you,
and you like, I wasn't dealing with it. And then I physiologically I would break out, and Michelle's seen me where my whole neck breaks out in hives. And I just, I have to take a minute. And, those are something you have to give yourself grace when you're in the thick of this. And like you said, Kelli, it's like a roller coaster, and sometimes I don't see myself when I'm not, like, sometimes I like to take myself off my medication. And my husband just loves it. Yeah, he's like, are you like messing with your medicine right now? And I'm like, oh crap. Yeah, I've been messing with my meds. And then he's, and then I don't see it when I'm in the nitty gritty of it. And sometimes I have to have him to call out my crap and just be like, you're not taking care of yourself. You're drinking too much, or you're not exercising like you should be, or and he's not like being mean to me. It's just, kind of calling me out on my crap, and it's like, you need to go back to therapy, and it's time to like get yourself some help, or we need to go to therapy and like work on some stuff. So it's, I don't know, like, that's like my best advice for people is, just try to find your tribe and, like, the people that can see you at your worst help you, and also just high five you when you're at your best. That's just, this is it's a journey. This is a marathon, and Frank D'Angelo says it best. This is a marathon, not a race.
As I have gone through my journey, I actually had a friend one time tell me that she's like, you never get over it, and it's not something that just goes away, but you do learn how to grow forward. And that was probably the most powerful for me, because you don't have to stay stuck in the anger. You don't have to stay stuck in the sadness. You don't have to stay stuck anywhere, really. But you also start as you go along the journey, right? Because we know that it doesn't ever go away, but we do learn how to change. At least for me, mine has now shifted into celebration for my sister. I have people that often say, well, I can't even believe like you talk about it as often as you do. Or if somebody close to me happens to die by suicide, and then I've had people just say, well, I just locked myself in a basement and that's how I deal with it. And I'm like, okay, well, everybody's experience is different. And we all have a way of how we cope. And I love that, Amy, you said that your husband calls you out on your crap, because sometimes we need people to do that, right? Like, I know, living in the world of mental health and suicide prevention every day, working in it, I have to remind myself that I have to take care of myself, right? And I often can tell everybody else around me to take care of themselves, but I'm not taking care of myself. And I think that is really important, whatever journey you're going through and experiencing. So we're going to go to our last quick sponsored break. But once we get back, I have a couple other questions that popped into my head. So we'll be right back after this.
Host of Own Your Wellness, and you can watch my show on Mondays and Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific on Achieve TV right here on E360 TV. Remember, there's more to health and wellness than broccoli and burpees.
Hi, Laura Cross, your host for Mindful Mondays, every Monday at 1 p.m. Central Time, where you can embark on a transformative journey of self-care and ultimate happiness. Tune in to the Voyage to Vitality channel on the Achieve TV network. Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. Be there, be mindful, and join us on E360 TV.
And we're back. So the question, I know we just talked about like invisible scars, and when we talk about mental health in general, really truly that is, I mean, if you talk about physical health, you can see somebody that broke their leg. You oftentimes ask them about recovery and like, how long do you have to be in a cast, or how long till you can go back to work? But the missing piece when we talk about mental health is really that hope and recovery piece. And I think that even translates, into trauma and also school shootings. And they're like both of you said, is that there's some people that just won't even talk about it. Our parents don't want to talk about it. The people that were in the school don't want to talk about it. And I think that it is doing a disservice to themselves and probably everybody else around them. But it's also a hard conversation. And that's why I love that both of you are here today. And you also made this whole organization that can really support these survivors. And I know that we were supposed to have one more of your colleagues on here today, and hopefully I'll be able to bring her on to another episode, because she is also a mass shooting survivor. But and this is just a question, and I'm not sure how to change things as it is today, but I think that it feels like mass shootings have become more prominent. And in Colorado, we have, I mean, like two of the biggest school shootings. And sometimes though we don't reach like the national level of people talking about it, and I only know that because I have had somebody say that in their town, like they never heard about anything other than Columbine, because like you both talked about media, it was one of the first televised shootings, and that can be really really hard, especially with youth. So I guess the question, that was like a long, sorry, circle. The question that is coming up is like, how do we change this? How do we shift it? And then also just talking about Survivor's Path. We'll talk about that after.
I think, so there's been many Colorado shootings here. We've had STEM, we've had Arapahoe, there's Aurora Theater. I've done a lot of work in my past, working one-on-one with survivors and walking their path and helping them in their journey of recovery. I've walked a path from a STEM student where we went into the school where she was at. We sat in each moment, we talked about it, and we worked our way all the way out of the school. And there's something when you're ready for that part of your journey, it's very therapeutic. I do mine every year, and I always tell students or mass shooting survivors that the person that you were the day before your shooting is dead. And the person that you are now is who you have to learn to love and get to know. And so you have to go through a grieving period of letting go of that person that you once were, and understanding who you are today. We're both, Amy and I are very normal. We have our own.
Well, I'm not that normal.
we there's no definition of normal anymore with the amount of mass shootings that happen. We have, I'll speak for myself. I've accepted who I am. I love my low days. I love my high days. It makes me feel alive. It gives me a purpose of what I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. It gives those who are just experiencing the aftermath of their mass shooting or their mass trauma kind of that outlook of, I'm 25 years out and I'm okay. And I've had rough roads and I've had dark paths, and I've come out on the other side.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know who I'd be without having what I've gone through.
Yeah. I don't know how I've been asked this question a lot. How do we stop mass shootings? What do we do? Is it gun reform? Is it mental health? And it's such a multifaceted issue. But I think at the forefront of everything, it's mental health. And, we've got to keep having difficult conversations, and we've got to work together. And, especially with our youth, I think it's really important. Think of our kids. They do mass, shooting drills at school, and that's like normal. I don't think that's normal.
I don't think
that we're just, being complicit, and we're just being like, okay, this is just how things are going to be now. And, I feel like that's like letting the perpetrators win, and just, we've got to keep having hard conversations. We've got to keep doing the work at the ground level. And that's why we're with Survivor's Path trying to connect with other organizations, because, we don't want to make money off of our stories. That's not what this is about. But what we want to do is make mental health affordable. And when a survivor does go through something like this, that they know that they have the services that we can help connect them to services, and that they'll be paid for. That
more than 6 sessions.
Yeah. Because, Michelle and I, we still check in with our therapists, and that comes out of pocket. If I want to see my therapist, it's $175 a session, and that hurts. That hurts the pocket, it's not affordable. It's not, and then I take mental health meds. And though that has been, something that I advocate too, is that, I don't like being on medicine, but me being off of medicine is not a good thing, you know,
Yeah.
but I found the sweet spot where I'm in a good spot now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to continue. And you know what? I might not be in a good spot a year from now, and then I'll have to reevaluate. But right now I'm in a good spot, but I think it's really important that we keep having these hard conversations because, you know, our generation, I think we can really help the next generation come up and say, it's okay not to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you going to
Yeah.
navigate that? And how, I mean, because this is it, this is life. Like you have to you can't just not deal with it. You know,
Yeah.
you have to do the work, you know,
Yeah.
and it sucks. It's not fun sometimes, you know, but then you can come out of it and, you know, I'm not saying we're like healed or anything, but you know, you can come out of it on the other end and say, you know what, I did some really hard crap and I'm proud of myself, or, you know, today was a hard day, but how did I deal with that? And, you know, I think it's really important that like you said, I don't know what the answer is to stop these, but we have to do something for mental health.
Yeah. Working with other survivors, especially STEM, you know, shortly afterwards, it was out of the news. And there's a positive and there's a negative of Columbine being in the news. Anytime it happens, they will say, you know, 2 states over, Columbine happened where, you know, 2 perpetrators came in. It's always, you know, whenever I tell someone I'm from Columbine, they tell me it's like, you know, when Kennedy was assassinated, I know where I was. I tell new survivors that it's a blessing and it's a curse. Of course, you want people to never forget. And as a survivors community, we don't forget. We will always check in on our survivors. But as a media standpoint, it's okay that they forget, because 9 times out of 10, they're not always honest in their portrayal of what actually happened. They don't show the raw mental health truth that they should show. And it's you don't want to, it's really hard to heal in the public eye.
Yeah.
And at Columbine, we've had to heal in the public eye, some of us. And it's been very difficult for a lot of us to be vulnerable and put ourselves out there. And so it's not always a bad thing when the media forgets. Because I remember, and I know Amy remembers, and there's a huge survivor community that will remember for you.
Yeah. And I mean, so I've had a guest, and we're coming to the end, but I've had a guest in the past that he almost became a school shooter. So that was like a really, really interesting guest that I have, knowing, because it's very much mental health related, but also the trauma that he experienced in his life. And now he goes around and talks to people and helps schools and FBI and the CIA and all of them create safety plans. And so I think it's important that we understand the behind the scenes of how you can get to that point. But I think it's also important to know the people that were in these events and their stories. So we're almost like only a couple more minutes. Well, a couple more, but I want you to just tell, if somebody wants to learn more about Survivor Path, where can they do that?
You can check us out at survivorspath.com. And yeah, it's right down below. Check us out. And if you would like us to come speak, you can click on a link and you can read more about our bios. And we're going to start putting up things, you know, that we're going to be doing. I know that Michelle and Amber are going to be speaking in Kansas City, Missouri for the Case Management Association. So we have some things coming up, and, we're going to start partnering with an organization called STOP, and as well as the 720 Foundation. So we'll have all that up on our website soon.
Amazing. So that is survivorspath.com. Ladies, thank you so much for being my guest for today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for the work you're doing. You're doing amazing work.
Yes,
and
we
just
appreciate it.
We appreciate the platform to come onto your show and talk. So
yeah, thank you. All right, y'all, that was another amazing episode of Make Mental Health Matter. You just never know what experience people go through. And I think the overarching of this whole conversation is have the conversations. We're all on this journey. We're all on this planet, this thing that we call life. And there are times that we experience traumatic events, and there is a lot of hope and recovery, but we really need to get to the bottom line, understanding like the mental health aspects, really knowing how we can empower people using their voice to share their story, to hopefully help others that have been in that experience or in a similar experience. So, if you need any additional information or resources, go to makementalhealthmatter.org. We have lots of trusted resources on there, and I know Survivor's Path will be one of those trusted resources that we will have on there soon too. So, thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and just make sure you come back next Monday. You can listen on Dream Vision 7 Radio at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. Mountain Time, Denver Mountain Time, by simply saying, Alexa, play Dream Vision 7 Radio, or you can watch on E360 TV at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. So whatever you do, I'll see you back next Monday.